Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you're listening to
Girls Nerd Out. Hello, everyone. It is me, Amanda, and my best friend, Andrea.
Hey.
And we are incredibly excited to talk to you about spooky content. We love Halloween. We love spooky. Halloween is my favorite holiday, and Andrea loves anything spooky, dark.
I just watched a bunch of horror movies yesterday, so yes.
Yeah, Andrea decided to binge watch, what was it, The Conjuring?
I did watch The Conjuring.
But, like, not just horror movies that I can't watch. I can't watch those that are about, like, demons. Like, it gives me nightmares, like, I can't do it. Andrea's like, nah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine. It's no big deal. So, yeah, she's a bit more brave than me. But we have some really, really cool stuff to talk to you guys about. Andrea's going to go first. And if you are a Game of Thrones show watcher and haven't read the books, prepare to get your mind blown a little bit in the best way possible. If you've read the books, prepare to talk about some stuff that is really creepy and fascinating. And we also have some really cool theories that we're going to sprinkle in that I think you guys are really going to like. So we've been very excited about this. Andrea, you want to go ahead and tell them what you're going to talk about?
Yes. I'm going to talk about the Night's King now. Don't be confused with the Night King. The Night King was in the show. That character doesn't exist in the books. This is a completely different person. He is a legend. He was around the time of the Age of Heroes, so you hear about him a couple of times throughout the books. The first person that talks about it mainly is Old Nan, and she's the oldest person at Winterfell, so she knows a lot of stuff. And she believes that the Night's King was a Stark. We don't know his actual name because all of that was known about him was destroyed. The stuff that we do know about him is that he was the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. So some people in the book say he could have been a Bolton, a Magnar, a Flint, a Nori, a Woodfoot, which I didn't even know what House Woodfoot was, so I had to Google that. And apparently that was a house on Bear Island, and they were wiped out by the Ironborn. So he could literally be anybody, to be honest, but I strongly believe he's a Stark. It just fits.
Basically, for the people that mostly know the show, me and Andrea don't think there's going to be a leader of the Army of the Dead. It's just the Army of the Dead. So the guy with the ice spear that kills Viserion, yeah, he's not in the books at all. This is actually scarier, way scarier than the Night King in the show, I think. Don't you think, Andrea?
I believe he's scarier, yes.
Because this is just a human man at first. This is just a regular dude. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, normal Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, apparently. Mm-hmm. And he fell in love with a woman that he saw from on top of the wall. She had skin as white as the moon and eyes like blue stars. And she was very cold, even if you watch the show only. That she is a White Walker. And he sleeps with her. Mm-hmm. And then he also gives his soul, and I take that as he dies.
That it's recorded, or at least in story, that he sleeps with her is creepy as hell. I can't say too much, but I don't know how that would have been enjoyable for him, number one. Because she's cold.
She's cold and probably doesn't speak at all, so she just stands there, I guess.
But, like, it's kind of implied, though, that she coaxed him into it, so I don't know. I just have this vision of this really pretty, like, pale chick that doesn't say much, but, like, has, like, a low-cut ice dress with some cleavage or something, maybe? I don't know. The guy fell in love with her, though, so we'll just go with that.
But when it says that, like, she took his soul, too, I just assumed that meant he died. But he gets brought back at some point. I mean, a lot of people believe he's like a sorcerer. So he used his sorcery to bind the brothers of the Night's Watch to be okay with everything. And he leaves with her to go to the Night Fort, which is the largest castle on the wall, one of the largest. And the Night Fort has a lot of stories that come out of that. But this one is the most interesting to me because He basically declares himself king and her queen, and they rule.
Yep.
And we don't know exactly what they do necessarily, but a lot of people say a lot of dark stuff comes out of that place. Sacrificing people to the others. That's one of the main things I saw. He rules for 13 years with her. I would like to know exactly what he did to sacrifice people. I guess kill a bunch of people? I don't know.
It makes me wonder if his sacrifices were similar to Craster sacrificing.
That's probably what it is, but like, where'd they get the kids if it's like that? Maybe it's like adults that he does it to.
And what is she doing this entire time? Is she just kind of sitting there as like an ice queen?
She can't just be there to look pretty, so I'm sure she's doing things.
Mm-hmm.
Joramun was king beyond the wall. They joined together and destroyed the Night King, supposedly, took him down. That's all it says. They don't say what happens to him after that or the Ice Queen. They just destroyed him, and when they found out about all of this stuff that he was doing, they decided to get rid of everything about him, and his name was forbidden.
It's a huge deal to think of the king in the north and the king beyond the wall working together. That doesn't happen. I mean, we know that from Game of Thrones. They're separate. So what he was doing, they were doing, had to be so incredibly disturbing that it affected the Night's Watch, but it also affected the wildlings, because the king beyond the wall wouldn't have anything to do with it. They must have been doing things to wildlings too. Had to be.
I have a feeling this is what happened to the bulk of the army of the dead.
Ooh,
like,
damn.
I believe like the most that we're going to see is probably from this time.
Oh my God. No, I like that.
But, you know, then we got maesters who don't believe that he even existed. You know, they don't like magic. They don't believe in the others. Even though they write about them, they don't believe in them. And most of this stuff from that time was written thousands and thousands of years later. So
Andrea and I don't like the maesters. We've got basically a couple we're cool with. One's Marwyn, which I'm going to talk about him later. He believes in magic. He has a glass candle. He is... What would you say Marwyn is? Marwyn, he's got a little Merlin to him, but he's also a little haphazard. He's just interesting. He's the most interesting maester there is by far. But he knows that the majority of the maesters at the Citadel are trying to suppress magic and knowledge of magic. That's why we like Marwyn. That's why we're cool with him. But
I like them a lot.
I think they know all of this stuff. At least the older ones do. I think there's record of it. And I think they know it just so they can make sure other people don't find out about it, because they don't like magic any kind. Because they can't control it.
Exactly. And apparently a maester did write a book called Watchers on the Wall. So he put stories about the Night Fort in there, and one of them was the Night's King. So why would he do that if it wasn't real? I don't think he just made that up.
Hell no. He did not. Maesters aren't going to make up stories about magic. He wrote that down because it was things that were outside the realm of what the maesters feel comfortable with.
Exactly. Oh, excuse me. He was an archmaester, not a maester. So even that, to me, means that this was real. This happened.
That actually gives it more credence, because you have maesters. Well, I mean, it's kind of based off priest in like the Catholic Church a bit. So you have, let's see, what are they called? The ones that are studying to become a maester? Acolytes.
Oh, acolytes, yes.
Yeah, so you have acolytes of different levels. Then you have maester. Then you have the archmaesters. And then you have the Grand Maester who hangs out in King's Landing. And it's a lot. The Citadel's huge. And they know everything, because every big castle, big keep has a maester, and that maester sends ravens. So if they want to suppress something, I mean, it's actually genius. It's genius. I mean, you think about Littlefinger and Varys knowing things, not like the Citadel. The Citadel has maesters everywhere in every corner. They know everything.
It's kind of creepy, to be honest.
Hell yeah, it's creepy. The gray rats. But I think they know everything about Night's King.
Since they don't say what happened to him after this, like his body, I mean, a lot of people said he was probably burned because that's what they do in the North. When somebody dies, they burn their dead. But I don't think that. I think he's somebody else. And currently in the books, there is a character that hangs out with Bran. Well, we first get introduced to Cold Hands. That's his name. We don't know his name prior to that. He is undead. He's like Lady Stoneheart. He's like what happens to Jon Snow. Although Jon Snow's not necessarily undead in the show. They really screwed that up. I'm sorry, they did.
And guys, it's not Benjen. Cold Hands is Benjen in the show. Yes. In the books, George has said that Cold Hands is not Uncle Benjen. We don't know where Benjen is. Cold Hands, I think, is much older than Benjen.
He said he died long ago, and Benjen Stark died in the first book, and that wasn't long ago. Mm-hmm. And he's wearing the Night's Watch clothing. And I personally think that he used to be a Night's Watch, and some people believe that he's not important. Like, when we find out who he is, if we ever find out who he is, it won't be anybody that matters to the story. And I'm like, I think it will. I don't think anything George writes is just for, whatever reason. Like, I think there's a purpose for everything in these books. So, Cold Hands is important, and I think he's the Night's King. It just fits. He died long ago. We don't know what happened in the Night's King's body. Like I said, I think he died when she took his soul. So that is him.
I think that's really interesting because it makes a lot of sense. Because, okay, say it's Night's King and she's gone. They destroyed her. What he's doing for Bran, it could be seen as somebody trying to do like penance because of all the wrong that he's done in the past. That would line up. I mean, that would actually be badass. And you're right, George does not spend that much time and that many words on a character that doesn't matter. He just doesn't.
When Jon Snow comes back to life, because he'll be different, I don't think he'll be like how he was in the show. I think he'll be darker, as opposed to evil. I don't know, but I definitely think he's gonna be dark, and I think he will be the Night's King.
I think he's gonna be more feral. He's gonna have been in Ghost for quite some time, and they don't recommend that you stay in your direwolf for very long, because the longer you're in there, the more you disappear, and it's just the direwolf. But I think he's gonna be a lot different. In the show, you thought that he was gonna be different when he came back because, he gets revenge, and then you see him, he's like, my watch is ended. But then he goes back to just regular Jon. We don't really see a lot of difference. I think you're right. I think Book Jon is gonna be more savage.
I still think he's going to be himself, but not like that, not as good, because he's not even that good. I mean, yes, he's a good guy, and I like the decisions he makes, but some people don't, they don't think he makes good decisions.
Guys, if you haven't read the books, I highly recommend at least listening to the audiobooks, because you just get so much. I mean, obviously, in an adaptation, they fit in whatever they can, but there's a lot more complexity to Jon in the books because he's younger and he has to make a lot more difficult decisions. The whole quote, kill the boy and let the man be born. I think that's what's happening to him now. I mean, he's been dead for quite some time because it's been a long time since that book came out. But I think, like you said, I think he's going to be different because the boy will be dead.
And now he'll be a man, and he'll be a bit darker of a man, but that's fine.
Well, tell me this. If Jon leads the army of the dead, what do you think he's going to do? Do you
I
think
go back.
he's going to help everybody by leading them?
I think he's going to help by leading them, and then eventually I don't want this to happen, but for some reason I'm thinking he's going to sacrifice himself for the long night.
That's the same thing I've said about Daenerys. I don't want it to happen, but there's just too many things that point to sacrifice. And Jon and Daenerys, they parallel so many times. I mean, it would add up. You have an ice sacrifice and a fire sacrifice.
Yeah, because he's definitely the ice, and a lot of people want to know if there's going to be an ice dragon. If Jon Snow is a Targaryen, he is the ice dragon.
Damn. Good job, Andrea.
I've been thinking about that within the last couple of days. I'm like, he's got to be the ice dragon.
Well, I love that. He is the ice dragon. Damn.
Just because of Viserys, he calls himself the dragon all the time. Mm-hmm. And not saying Jon's going to call himself a dragon and be annoying, but that's the only thing I can think of. Because I'm like, he is a dragon. I believe he is.
We don't know what the others exactly want and why they've become active. But a lot of people think they're looking for Jon. So, in the prologue, which is the creepiest prologue you can imagine in the best way, Waymar Royce is in the Night's Watch, and he's dressed like a lordling. He's dressed a lot better than the other people that he's with, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he's described as having dark hair, I think. Yes. Well, he is taken by the others, and there's a theory that the others were looking for Jon Snow and thought that was him because he's dressed like somebody that came from a castle.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. It does, because he seems like the one they're after, and he resembles Jon. But here's the thing: how the hell do they know what to look for? That's the eerie part about it. It gives you this idea that the others are not these ice automatons that are just zombies. Because we're not meant to think that. In the books, they actually speak. They speak to each other. They have their own language. It's creepy as hell. It's said to sound like cracking ice. They communicate.
Well, and Varamir Sixskins, when he sees that girl that he tried to kill, she stares right at him. There are some of them left in there. Their old self is there somewhere.
Which that gives it a huge level of creepy, because the ones that attacked the old bear, he even tells Craster, he's he knew where to find me. He knew what room I was in. So there's something that does remain inside. Man, I love these books. Jesus, I love these books.
Nothing can compare. I'm just saying.
No, it really can't. Oh, and just a little side note, I had the opportunity to go to Texas and attend the Game of Thrones auction, which was absolutely amazing. And they made $21 million.
That is so amazing that you were able to go, and I'm glad you had a fun time.
Thank you. If anybody thinks that Game of Thrones is not still popular, that auction just proved it. It set records. They've only had one other auction make more money than that, and that was the Debbie Reynolds massive auction that had all this old Hollywood stuff, all these costumes. It made a little over 22 million. And it was massive. This is one show. Game of Thrones made 21 million.
That's awesome.
Mean, it's just telling. It's so telling. It's telling that this story is still super popular. The show's still super popular. I mean, we're going to get spinoffs and stuff. I'll be honest with you. It made me feel really good because it made me realize, damn, there is a lot of people out there that love this still. And we'll continue to.
There's still new people that are coming to the fandom and watching it, so I think that's great.
Oh, yeah, and like we've said, House of the Dragon brought people in. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms will do the same.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait for that show. Oh, I can't wait
either. Man, that's going to be good. It's going to be less creepy, but it's going to be really cool because it's going to be very character driven, and I like that. I think it's going to be a really interesting new view of the world.
I also can't wait to hear more about the rebellions. Like, that'll be awesome.
True, very true. Yeah, it's more like, it's like in Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, like you are seeing this overview from the sky, and then in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, it's like you're on the ground, like seeing everything small. It's just like under a different lens, and I enjoy it. I like it a lot, and I think it's going to be good. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
My creepy topic is also something that is show and books. So everybody knows Qyburn. Good old Qyburn. He, in the show, is played by a phenomenal actor. I don't remember his name. But he has a little bit of a creepy look to him. He's bald. We first meet him at Harrenhal. He's the one that saves Jaime's arm after he loses his hand. And Qyburn quickly becomes very close to Cersei. Well, there's a bit more to that. In the books, I find this to be insanely creepy. He doesn't look like his show version. So it said Qyburn was old, but his hair still had more ash than snow in it, and the laugh lines around his mouth made him look like some little girl's favorite grandfather.
That makes it even creepier.
Exactly. The fact that he's not a creepy looking dude, because this guy, he's Frankenstein. He's Dr. Frankenstein. But him looking like somebody's nice favorite grandfather makes it so much more eerie. So much more.
Don't go to his house on Halloween.
Hell no. You won't ever be found again. Be in the black cells, whatever the hell he does down there. Qyburn's got a real interesting backstory. We don't know too much about when he's super young, but we know he goes to the Citadel to become a maester. And he actually sought to surpass the Archmaester. What they were doing is kind of what you would expect, because this is based on, like medieval times and stuff like that. So they're opening up dead bodies to learn, which, okay, makes sense. Well, Qyburn decided to open up living bodies to discover the secrets of death. And they frowned upon that. It doesn't say where he got the living people that he experimented on. One can only guess. But, so he also studied necromancy. So he was studying live bodies and tried to bring them back to life. When that was uncovered, which I'm sure that was a shock, they stripped him of his chain and his position. And he is not looked well upon. Except for, who we talked about earlier, Marwyn. Marwyn the Mage. Oh, I really like this. And Andrea, I think you and I have talked about this before. Jaime actually asked Qyburn, do you believe in ghosts? And Qyburn says, once at the Citadel, I came into an empty room and saw an empty chair. Yet I knew a woman had been there only a moment before. The cushion was dented where she'd sat. The cloth was still warm, and her scent lingered in the air. If we leave our smells behind us when we leave a room, surely something of our souls must remain when we leave this life. The Archmaesters did not like my thinking, though. Well, Marwyn did, but he was the only one. I really like that quote because a lot of times it is implied that when you die, it's just nothing. Like Beric, he doesn't remember anything from when he's dead. So, and in the show, Melisandre, asks Jon when he's resurrected, what did you see? What did you see? And he's like, nothing. It was just black. Well, that's kind of a theme off and on. It's sort of an implication, like nothing happens. But this is important, I think, because it's very detailed. I think Qyburn's saying maybe he's seen ghosts.
Well, I believe he probably did, because Old Town is one of the oldest cities ever, and a lot of stuff has happened there. A lot of bad stuff has happened there. So it's possible that there's ghosts, just like people think Harrenhal is haunted. I definitely do. Not show Harrenhal, obviously. Yes, that is haunted, but it's a lot creepier in the books. So
Harrenhal is incredibly creepy. It's cursed. And I don't know how many ghosts Harrenhal would have. I mean, it's like, what, thousands? How many people have died there?
So many people, but I wanted to say, since we were talking about Harrenhal really quick about the ghosts, there was, House Horror was the first owners of Harrenhal. They're the ones that created it. And that's Harren the Black. Harren the Black was the main patriarch of the family. And he said after his family, his whole entire line died, people said that they have seen him and his sons in the Wailing Tower when he died in a different tower. So, and then some people said they see him through the halls, which is interesting.
Harrenhal has got to be one of the creepiest places in Westeros, because so much death and destruction happened there. And I don't think it's an accident that that's where we meet Qyburn, at Harrenhal. I mean, it lines up. Like, Qyburn's at Harrenhal, the creepiest damn place in Westeros, probably. And he's basically Frankenstein. So obviously he's hanging out there. He's with the Brave Companions, which are a bunch of pretty sick dudes that are led by the Mountain, who is Gregor Clegane, which is the Hound's brother, who we know is not a nice person. He's even worse in the books, if you can imagine that. So we meet Qyburn. He's the one that keeps Jaime from losing more than, obviously just his hand. And he goes with him to King's Landing. And from there, he gets very close to Cersei. He gets rid of people for Cersei, like I said before. And Jaime actually says something to Cersei about it, basically saying, I don't know if you should be so close to this creepy dude. And Cersei just waves it off. She's just like, it's fine. He's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
So dumb. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, but it makes more sense when you know that he looks like somebody's favorite grandfather. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about the show Qyburn, like, he's got a creep vibe. Nah, not this guy. This is like creepy Santa Claus. So obviously Cersei's just looking at surface level. We know her. Book Cersei. She's not an idiot. She's just very overconfident.
And ignores a lot of stuff.
Yes, she does. She does.
It's going to bite her in the butt one day, I'm just saying.
Yeah, way worse than her Walk of Atonement. Way worse. She's screwed. So, Varys disappears in the books whenever Tywin is killed. So, Cersei is lacking a Master of Whispers. So, obviously, even though he has nothing to do with that thus far, Cersei makes him Master of Whispers.
He's a terrible Master of Whispers too in the books. Terrible.
It's a bit of an odd choice. Apparently, she gives him money and he employs little birds like Varys, but he's not connected like Varys. But, again, it's Cersei. But, I mean, so this guy has gone from, like, leaving the Citadel, shame, to now he's Master of Whispers. He's called a lord, and he's sitting on the small council, which the Grand Maester at the time, Pycelle, same as in the show, he's completely disgusted by it. He's so disgusted. He hates him. But we don't really like Pycelle, so that's fine.
Nah.
This is funny to me. So instead of gray robes in the books, Qyburn dresses himself in white robes decorated with whorls of gold, and he wears a golden sash. Like, if that's not a FU, I don't really know what is. Something that a lot of people don't know or forget about is actually Qyburn's idea to send some people to the Night's Watch to assassinate Jon.
Yep.
So that's where that idea comes from, and I don't think Qyburn gets blamed a lot for that, and it's definitely his idea. Okay, so in the books, it's just like the show. The Mountain, Gregor Clegane, he fights Oberyn, and he wins. He kills Oberyn, but he doesn't die. So the Mountain is wounded multiple times by Oberyn, and he just lingers in some sort of not quite death. Cersei has Pycelle go try to save him, and Pycelle can't do anything. He's apparently oozing like dark black blood, and he won't die, but he's not quite alive. And obviously, Cersei's got her new guy, so she tells Qyburn, hey, why don't you go down there and see if you can save the Mountain? There's a bit about some women that Cersei gives to Qyburn.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to know what he's doing to them necessarily.
Nah, I don't think we want to know. There's multiple women that Cersei wants to disappear, and she just gives them to Qyburn, and one she asks about later, and he's like, no, she's exhausted, she can't speak, and it's like, oh, okay. And Cersei describes one as a foul thing screaming in the darkness.
Yeah, she's all full of hearts and flowers over these women.
Yeah, she has a moment of, well, man, maybe that was shitty of me to send them down there. And then she's over it. She's over it in like a minute. What's really creepy is while Qyburn is doing his experiments, he changes clothes. He gets out of his white robe with gold, and he wears rough spun wool and a blacksmith's leather apron. So that tells you he's doing some strange stuff down there. If he's got to put on his own torture attire, you gotta love that. So,
well, you don't want to get any blood on your white robes, you know.
No, especially not if they have, gold swirls. All right, so Loras goes to siege Dragonstone. The only reason that matters is because Cersei mentions that in case Loras dies, she is gonna need another champion on the Kingsguard. Well, around that time, Qyburn orders a massive suit of armor that is supposedly so big and heavy to be worn by any man. Any man at all. Okay. Cersei starts thinking about the prophecy, which is mentioned in the show too, about, a younger queen's gonna come along, take everything from her. So she asks Qyburn if he thinks that prophecies can be broken, and he actually tells her that he thinks they can, but the part I want to bring up is he mentions that blood magic is the darkest and most powerful kind of sorcery. I don't think we have any idea what blood magic can do. I think we just know some because of what happened with Daenerys and Khal Drogo and whatever Qyburn's doing. But I think blood magic is really, really creepy. Because that's the stuff that they're doing in the East and Ashine. And that's the darkest stuff. Cersei's arrested, and she needs a champion, and she's gonna do her Walk of Atonement. Well, Qyburn tells her, you really don't have anything to worry about. I need to introduce you to Sir Robert Strong.
Interesting name that they picked, since nobody's alive to like say, hey, that's not Robert Strong.
Yeah, like, who's Robert Strong? Where'd he come from? Anything, nothing. Dude says nothing. He's huge guy in armor. And Qyburn quickly says he's taken a vow of silence, swearing not to speak until all of King Tommen's enemies are dead and evil has been driven from the realm. Yeah, that's really convenient if you're talking to somebody who can't speak. So, he took a vow of silence. All right, we know that that's the mountain. We know it's the mountain. It has to be. But there's two theories about what's going on underneath that helmet, and they're both great. Okay, so the first one, there is a short story called The Last Defender of Camelot. And in this short story, there is a Hollow Knight, and his actions are actually controlled by this kind of batshit crazy version of Merlin. When Lancelot knocks off his helm, he discovers the knight has no head. He's headless. And he's actually a spirit raised by Merlin. Here's the reason why that ties in. George actually adapted that story for the Twilight Zone. So there's a distinct possibility if you remove the helm of Robert Strong, there's no head, which is pretty creepy. I mean,
that would make sense why he took a vow of silence.
Yeah, vow of silence because he has no head. And the thought is he has no head because Dorne demands to have Gregor Clegane's head for crimes he's done against Dorne. We don't have to get into that too much, but Dorne gets a head, and it's a huge-ass head.
Yes.
So where are you going to find another huge-ass head that's that big? Nowhere. So,
nope.
So either dude has no head, or he has a different head. So Bran actually has a vision in the first book. In most of these visions, you can pretty much figure out what he's kind of seeing. In this vision, there's a giant in stone armor. But when he opened his visor, there was nothing inside but darkness and thick black blood. Which, that sounds like Robert Strong. Yeah. Because the Manticore venom that Oberyn poisoned him with turned his blood like black and thick and gross. So that's the one theory, is that dude has no head because his head was sent to Dorne and he's reanimated by Qyburn with no head. Here's theory 2, which is the one that me and Andrea probably talk about more. Well, so Robb Stark. Joffrey wanted Robb's head. Because if you remember, even in the show, he says he wants to serve it to Sansa on their wedding night. You gotta love Joffrey.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Well, as far as we know, Robb's head was sent to King's Landing because we know, unfortunately, Grey Wind's head was put on his body.
Yeah, where's his head? Where else could it be?
Exactly. Well, unfortunately, there's a connection there because Stark means strong in both Swedish and German. So Robert Strong, Robb Stark. So there's a distinct possibility too that if his helm was removed, it's Robb Stark's head.
I just hope that this poor undead creature gets put out of his misery before anybody of the Stark family sees it. Because if that's really, which I believe, we both believe it's a possibility that it's him, it's going to just be devastating.
Look, having Robb Stark's head is creepier than having no head. Now, the Mountain is a disturbing, horrible person. We know that because that's the reason the Hound is burned. And he does just horrible things. But we don't know if this is him, if it's just like a reanimated body that does what Qyburn says. But, I mean, some people think there's a huge range of ideas of this guy's head, like more than you'd even think. Some people think he has Ned's head.
Oh.
Yep. Because, you know, his bones haven't made it back to Winterfell. I don't think we have confirmation of that.
Nope, we don't, because Lady Dustin wants to feed those bones to her dogs. So yeah, they haven't made it there yet.
Yep, some people think Lady Dustin might send Ned's head to King's Landing. I don't know. So there's the possibility of no head, Rob's head, his own head, and something else was sent to Dorne, Ned's head, or it's one of the women that Qyburn has been torturing.
Oh no.
So, Lady Felice Stokeworth comes to Cersei in despair because they had plans to kill Bronn, because Bronn married Felice's sister Lolly's.
Yes.
Well, Cersei doesn't want this woman around because she's talking too much and letting it out that Cersei wanted Bronn dead. So Cersei tells Qyburn to take her for experiments to make her disappear. So there's also a theory that his head is Felice Stokeworth's head.
Oh boy. That would just... Oh, that poor woman.
Yeah. So he either has no head, Rob's head, Ned's head, Stokeworth's head, his own head.
Do you think he could have like bone, like a skull as a head too, or nah?
If there's a possibility he has no head and he's moving around, hell yeah.
He could have Rhaegar's head.
Oh my god, we have a new one.
I don't know why I just thought of that. I was like, that would be interesting. That would be really interesting.
Rhaegar's head.
Rhaegar's head. I mean,
Jesus.
we wouldn't know if it's Rhaegar really, because it wouldn't look like him anymore, obviously, but...
You know the creepy part about that? Is that Rhaegar has a normal size head, so you have this giant dude with a small skull head. I mean... And, you know, any of these are probable, guys. I know we're laughing, but really, it's George. It's George. Come on. I don't know which one of those is the creepiest, to be honest with you. I don't.
Yeah, I can't think of one that would be the creepiest. No, they're all creepy.
They're all creepy. Noah George, he intended it for it to be like the Hollow Knight and no head. And then he changes his mind at some point and makes it, you know, Lady Stokeworth's head. Who knows? But there you go, guys. There's some of our favorite creepiness from Game of Thrones / A Song of Ice and Fire. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we enjoy talking about it.
It's an interesting chat. You read the books, you will find many things that you can talk about for ages.
Oh yeah, and if you enjoy this, please let us know, because this could easily be a series. There's so much creepy stuff. We would never run out of things to talk about.
No.
But I can guarantee you the next 2 episodes, next Monday and the next, it will be creepy content, because we enjoy October very much, and God knows there's enough creepy stuff to talk about. So,
oh yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate it, and we will catch you next time.
As always, it's Amanda here to say thank you to all of our listeners, and to ask that if you liked this week's episode, leave us an honest rating. And if you'd like to continue the discussion, please feel free to comment on our post over at our Girls Nerd Out podcast account on Instagram. If you're interested in buying any of our merch to support the podcast, and so that we can continue to release weekly episodes, then check it out over at girlsnerdoutpodcast.com. Our podcast logo was designed by Chairman Bilal over on Fiverr. Our podcast merch was put together by me, myself, and I at Southern Mother of Dragons on all social media. If you're interested in my personal merch, check it out at southernmotherofdragons.com. And the designs for that merch were put together by Ryuchi Studios on Etsy after an in-depth back and forth discussion with me to find the perfect merch for me and my loyal supporters. The music played while I tell you about all the ways you can support us and the production of the podcast is Kawaii Girl by Pumpkin Pie. Thanks for listening.
Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda. And you just listened to
Girls Nerd Out.